Blog Talk Radio.
This is your host, E. Cole. I am so excited about tonight's show. I'm so glad that you guys decided to tune in. Welcome to Money Matters with E. Cole. We are reporting live from Atlanta, Georgia, from Frisco to Maine, all the way to Spain. We're going all the way around the world with this thing. That's right. Money Matters, we are an internationally syndicated financial talk show. But we're not your normal everyday talk show. We believe in being extremely provocative. We believe in teaching financial literacy with simplicity and understanding so that wealth-building tactics may be applied to your everyday life. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am E. Cole. I'm your host. For you guys who are tuning in for the first time, let me tell you who I am. I am a financial expert. I have been in the business. I've been in the business of banking and finance for over a decade. I own a financial firm, which is Dean Cole Financial Incorporated, or DCFI is what we call it, which is our moniker. I am also a motivational speaker, and I've spoken in front of hundreds and thousands of schools and organizations and different nonprofit organizations. Also, I am a minister of the gospel as well. However, today we're going to focus on the specificities and the practicalities of how you're able to bounce back after bankruptcy. Yes, that's it. Bouncing back after bankruptcy. You know, today's climate is very difficult. And in my business, I've seen quite a few bankruptcies over my time. DCFI, what we do is we handle mortgage finance as well as debt management, REO acquisitions. Those are our three primary areas of focus in finance. And over the mortgage field, it's very prevalent now that so many people are filing bankruptcy. People are filing bankruptcy instead of getting a foreclosures. And we're going to go into all the details about that. We're going to talk about foreclosure and your options, and we're going to go step by step. If you've never listened to our show, I have to warn you, we are extremely provocative, and I believe in teaching and repetition. I believe that repetition is the mother of all learning. So get a pen and a piece of paper, because you're going to need it, so that you can take notes and you can write this down. If you know anyone right now who's going through a bankruptcy, or you know someone who's contemplating bankruptcy, this is the show to listen to. Look for us on Facebook at E. Dean Cole. Look for us on Facebook there, because I am going to provide you with a lot of cool, interesting websites and a lot of cool, interesting facts, and you can actually get the printed information by looking for us on Facebook. So if you're listening through iTunes, or you're listening through Google just by searching the web, or you're at Blog Talk Radio and you like to get more information, detailed information you're able to put in front of you, look for us on Facebook. That is the best way to get in contact with us. Okay, so let's get started. Bankruptcy. There are two types of bankruptcies that you're able to file when you are an individual. And we're talking about individual bankruptcy. We're not talking about from the business aspect. Yesterday's show was great. We got such wonderful, awesome feedback about yesterday's show. We were talking about the shortcuts to building business credit. So yesterday we were talking about the business aspect, but now we're going to talk about the person who owns the business. We're talking about your personal income, your personal debt. We're talking about your personal finances today. Now, there are two types of bankruptcies that people are able to file, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. And a lot of people don't know the differences between the two. But what I want to do is I want to start off with talking about the history of bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a sticky thing, because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am not the biggest fan of bankruptcy, because that's a generational curse that's attacked my family, actually. So I actually am very much so against bankruptcy. However, it does have its place. and we're going to basically talk about it. The beginning of bankruptcy, it goes all the way back to the Bible days. And most people don't know this. There was a Jewish tradition which was called the Year of Jubilee. And what happened was that every 10 years they would announce that it was the Year of Jubilee. During the Year of Jubilee, they would forgive all of your debts, and they will live off of the land. They would not store any grain or any food. They would live off of whatever they took, and they would forgive all the debts. And that's how the bankruptcy method started, was back in the Bible days. An Israelite brother would forgive his other Israelite brother for all of his debts. Every 10 years. It happened every 10 years. Everyone who had a debt, everyone who had an issue during the Year of Jubilee, their debts would all be forgiven. And anything that was loaned out to someone, they would receive that back. So if you had cattle that you had loaned out, or you had houses that you were loaned out, you were actually able to take the possession back. Very similar to how a bankruptcy works, where if a person has a car or they have a house, you're able to, in liquidation bankruptcy, and we're going to go into the differences between the two. And in liquidation bankruptcy, which is commonly known as a Chapter 7, then what happens is that your assets are liquidated, where someone's able to take back your house, take back the car, and then all your debts are forgiven, and you have a complete fresh start. Now, from the Bible days, the first actual term of bankruptcy came from the Roman culture, which was the two words which meant broken bench. Bankruptcy comes from the two Latin words which means broken bench. So, Mr. Cole, people say, Mr. Cole, what does that mean? What does a broken bench have to do with bankruptcy? Well, what happens is that the term would happen was that a banker bench would be broken. In the Roman days, they would do their finances in the court, in the Roman court. And whenever a banker ran out of funds, whenever he ran out of the ability to conduct business, he would be made a public mockery by his actual bench or his table where he conducted business would break, which would determine that he was bankrupt. And that's where the actual term came into our culture, was from the Roman was for the Roman society, which meant that banker ability to conduct business was broken. And that's basically when the downfall started, when the negative connotation came from bankruptcy. It's very difficult to go through a bankruptcy, because when you go through a bankruptcy, basically it's a public event, it's public record, and it states that I am not fit to take care of my finances. And I understand that people have to go through the terms, and they have to go through the filing of bankruptcy to say houses, to do with medical bills. Yes, it has its place. Like I said, I am not an advocate against bankruptcy. I am just not an advocate for bankruptcy. I am what you would consider a bipartisan when it comes to filing bankruptcy. I believe that you have the right to choose. I believe that you should make a wise decision. And the reason why I have such a personal outlook on bankruptcy is I've seen people file bankruptcy for $10,000, $20,000 in debt, and they file bankruptcy. And instead of disciplining themselves, creating a budget, they allow themselves to become bankrupt. Now, what happens is that when you file bankruptcy, it lasts on your credit report for 7 to 10 years. Yep, that's right. When you file bankruptcy, it has the legal right to go on your credit report for 7 to 10 years. And most people do not know this. They think that, a bankruptcy falls off after 7 years. Well, no, it actually has the ability to stay on your credit for a decade. You have to make sure that you manage your bankruptcy correctly to figure out which one is best for you. So let's talk about bankruptcy. What is a bankruptcy? What are the costs of bankruptcy? What does it mean? Well, there are two types of bankruptcy. There's a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and then there's a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, I have to advise you, it is extremely important that if you are contemplating bankruptcy, make sure that you look for a good, well-known, reputable, let me repeat that, reputable, moral attorney. There are bankruptcy attorneys. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are bankruptcy attorneys where all they do is force people to file bankruptcy. They are bankruptcy attorneys. That's all they do, and they don't necessarily force people to file bankruptcy, but if you go to them, they're going to look for reasons for you to file bankruptcy instead of looking for reasons not to file bankruptcy, because that's what they do. They get paid. They're a bankruptcy shop. And I personally disagree with that as a financial advisor, because I want people to feel empowered, because there is a such thing in finance which is called moral hazard. And I'm going to go into more hazard about that a little later after I define what the two bankruptcies are. Chapter 7 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The most common bankruptcy is a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Why is that? A Chapter 7 bankruptcy is what you would consider is a liquidation. That is when, if you have any assets of any kind and you just want a fresh start, that means that you are not responsible for any of your debts, depending on, there's a total of 21 debts that you are not able to put into the bankruptcy. And if you'd like to know what those 21 debts are, look for us on Facebook, and you can find, I have a note that says the 21 items that cannot be included in a bankruptcy. And that way you can see where they are. I'm going to skim over the major three that most people have big misconceptions about, but there are a total of 21 debts you cannot put in a bankruptcy. And it's unfortunate that some people file bankruptcy thinking that they can get rid of their debts, thinking they can save their house, and in some cases they're not able to do that because they do not file bankruptcy the proper way. So let's talk about Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a liquidation bankruptcy. That's where all of your debts are resolved. If you currently own a home, what happens is that not all of your house, it doesn't stop your bankruptcy immediately. Excuse me, not immediately. It doesn't stop your foreclosure. And definitely what will happen is that it will put a stay on your foreclosure. And the mindset behind that is that you don't have to pay anybody else, so you use all of your available funds to pay off your back payments to get back caught up on your home. That's the purpose of what most people do will follow a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That's when all of your debts are liquidated. If you are considered to be discharged from your bankruptcy, then no collector is able to come after you for anything except for 21 things. And those are the things that you can find on my Facebook page. So if you are listening and you're not one of my Facebook friends, look out for us on Facebook. We believe in sharing as much information as we can, and you can see the hard copy information on Facebook. Now, that's a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, Chapter 13 bankruptcy is different. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy is simply a restructure of your debt. Now, most people say, well, why would I file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy if I file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and everything's swept away? That is a very great question. This is why it's so important to sit down with the professional before you file bankruptcy to figure out which is the best for you. Now, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, just as well as a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, lasts on your credit for the same amount of time, which is 7 to 10 years. Now, with the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, the most interesting thing about a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is that all of your creditors, they're going to get a temporary stay, just like you do with the Chapter 7 bankruptcy. However, you have a trustee that you begin to make payments to, and that trustee pays your debt for you. And what happens is that you get a renegotiation, or you get a renegotiation of your debt, and you're able to get lower interest rates. The most interesting thing about the Chapter 13 bankruptcy that I would possibly be for is for a Chapter 13 is where you pay back the debts that you owe, and 2 is that you're able to take all of your old mortgage payments and you're able to spread them over 60 months. That is the biggest plus to filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. If you are facing foreclosure, you're able to take your old bad payments and spread them over 60 months versus doing a traditional loan modification where in most cases the most they want you to take it for is 24 months. And it's actually 12 months in most cases. So the way that modification guidelines there want to spread it over 12 months. And if you're interested in understanding loan modifications, we did a wonderful in-depth